Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Monday, December the 1st, first day of December. As we're wrapping up year 2025, let's say hello to our good friend Bill Katz, the editor of Urgent Agenda. Bill, I just read in the news that you guys are going to get some cold weather up there.
Well, that's what they're saying. We right now it isn't bad. It's actually fairly moderate, cold but moderate. But they expect two nor'easters, which means a heavy northeast storm, to hit the area, the general region, on Saturday and Sunday, and there is a possibility that we will get some snow or some freezing rain or something else that tells us that winter is about to begin. And so, we are on guard. We are on guard. We are always on guard because New York is always ready for anything.
Right.
So they say.
Well, yes. I mean, I assume you got your batteries. You always tell us to get batteries, so I assume you got your batteries for all of your different alarms that you have in your home to keep you posted. You don't want to be without batteries, Bill.
No, no, no. I have a good supply of traditional batteries, which I use in the alarm clocks and things like that.
Right,
And I
right,
have my rechargeable batteries. And of course, I always have as a last resort the fact that we have a built-in charger in our car, which I
all
think is
right,
really neat.
right,
So if you run out, you can always start the engine if you remember to get gasoline,
right,
and have your items charged.
right. Well, but then that's a violation of climate change. If you're just running your car out there to charge your battery, you may be punishing the environment for
That's
doing
true.
that. So,
That's true.
so
I
think
may,
about that. Think
yeah.
about that.
Well, I'll think of something very, very warming and kind to say in court.
Right, that's right. But anyway, I just read this, by the way. Speaking of batteries, I just happened to see this in California. They've encouraged everybody to get electric cars because, well, they're supposed to be better, I guess. But now they've run into a couple of problems. They're not collecting as much mileage tax or gas tax from people who are using electric cars. Of course, they don't put gasoline. They pay for energy differently. They charge their cars at home, but that's another matter. So now they're thinking about having to supplement that gasoline tax by putting a mileage tax
Yes,
on electric cars. Isn't that remarkable? And the other thing, I guess they don't have enough power stations to charge all those
it's
electric
true.
cars. So isn't it crazy how when things are done out of emotion and just unplanned. I have nothing against electric cars. In fact, I was one of my sons just got one and he's very happy with it. But I just think that when you buy things for pure emotion or political reasons, or tell people to do so, Bill, you end up creating all these unexpected problems.
Well, that's what
Uh,
problems for them, not,
yes,
not
right. Not for Newsom. I mean, I don't think you'll have a
no,
problem
he doesn't have
charging.
any problems.
Yeah. So, but it's just interesting how that happens.
Oh, sure. People give
Before,
bad advice all the time.
yeah, before they had a mileage tax or a gasoline tax, and theirs is pretty high up there.
Yeah,
So now they told people, hey, you don't have to buy gas. You can get an electric car and you can help the environment. Well, now they've got another problem. They need to put a tax on the electric car so that because they need to replace the gas. I mean, it's just crazy
well,
what California has turned into.
oh, well, I mean, there was no thought given to this at all when it was adopted. It
No,
was just whatever was fashionable down at the local Ivy League type school.
that's right.
That's what you did. I mean,
Right.
nobody thought about the possibility that a better traditional engine might be better for the environment than all the electric stuff, and that the electric car ultimately will be so expensive people won't be able to buy it.
Yeah, and they are very expensive. They're extremely.
Very.
In fact, most people lease them because they're so expensive to buy that they end up leasing them. But one thing out there, of course, the reason that all of a sudden they're thinking about taxes out there in California, that is because they're running an $18 billion deficit,
Yes.
and they're going to have to make it up by June 15th. That's what the law says. So they're going to have to either increase taxes a lot, which I don't know how they can do that anymore, or they're going to have to cut some spending out there. And so that's going to put Governor Newsom, kind of in a tough situation. He's going to have to make a lot of cuts, Bill.
Yes, and right before he wants to run for president.
Right. Exactly.
This is not a man with good timing. He
No.
really isn't. And California is completely overtaxed. It used to be such a beautiful
Oh,
state,
yeah.
and tremendous education and all the rest. And today, it's a state struggling to stay alive because they have one of the biggest out migration rates of any state in the United States. People are just leaving California in droves.
I read the other day that there's so many people leaving California every hour. They calculate it down to the hour, and it's an incredible number of people leaving every day or every hour. And at some point, if the people who pay taxes are leaving, you got a problem.
Oh,
You got a
yes.
real problem. You got a
Yes.
real problem. Anyway, well, let's talk about some of the topics of the last week. This shooting in D.C. was just absolutely horrific. Obviously,
Yes.
this young woman who was killed, rest in peace, and the young man who's apparently very seriously ill too. We hope he recovers. But Bill, what amazes me, look, just to put it on the table, I was okay with having some of these people from Afghanistan come over because we kind of threw them under the bus the way we
Yes.
left. And many of these people had been very helpful to American troops. And I know this from not just reading about it, from talking to people who served. And they all had their reliable Afghan friend. And all of them said to me, no, we got to help those people. We got to get them out because they're going to, kill them. But apparently in the rush to get out, it was so many people that they didn't do a good vetting job, as they say. But that was 4 years ago. But what in this particular case of this man who killed, his papers had expired
Yes.
4 years or some I don't know how long ago. But everybody knew where he lived. Everybody knew where his kids were going to school. At one point, I read he couldn't pay the rent, so they were going to evict him. So it's not like he was a stranger that we couldn't find him. So how the immigration authorities cannot find a person whose papers have expired, that to me is a real problem, Bill. I don't know how in the world we can get away with that one.
It's more than a problem. It's disgraceful. It's negligence. It's contempt for the country, contempt for its soldiers, contempt for our ideals. I mean, essentially, we have a system that's not operating, and people are dying because of it. And isn't it interesting that the Democratic Party just doesn't care? They couldn't care less.
Well, they just look at everything in terms of victims and oppressors, I guess.
That's exactly the way they're taught in school.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you are here as an illegal immigrant and your papers expired, it's not your fault. It's the fault of, I don't know, something that happened 500 years ago or something like that.
Yes, or
And
the system.
it just doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, the least you can expect, and by the way, I have personal experience in this because we came here from another country, as you know, came here from Cuba. And they were certainly a lot more organized when we came because I remember my parents had to file a lot of papers and so on. But I just think that this is the worst kind of management that there can be, where and like this guy, there are others whose papers have expired.
Of course, probably millions.
Yes. And what do we do with those people? I mean, don't they come up? It's like with a company. If you owe money to a company and the bill is not paid on time, it's going to come up on somebody's list that your payment is overdue, and they're going to call you at the very least. Well, apparently, we don't call these people.
I think it was made very clear to certain people in society, judges, others, police chiefs, that there are certain arrests we don't want made. And if you want to have a career in this city, maybe you ought to follow what the police commissioner says. Uh, I mean, the idea that we should have so many people running around with police records, with records of criminality, and nobody seems to care, at least not on the left, is disgraceful, and it is the kind of thing that historians will point to. If the United States ever collapses, that will be the kind of thing that historians will point to as one of the causes, that we just became negligent about our own good sense, our
Right.
own goodwill.
Well, that's it. I mean, I kind of, use the analogy here, Bill, of a business. Imagine that you have a business and every month you collect a subscription or a payment from your customer. And all of a sudden your customer doesn't pay. The first thing you do is maybe you send them a note saying, "Hey, Frank, you forgot to pay. Don't forget about us." If that doesn't work, then you make a phone call. And if that doesn't work, you take other action.
Yes.
And here it seems like we had to know that his papers had expired because they had, and yet nothing is done. He
Well,
continues to live. The guy is not only apparently continuing to live here with expired papers, but apparently, again, judging from what I'm hearing, he was not exactly a nice person. He was apparently acting a little strange. No,
had
none of the neighbors,
five
five
children.
five children, and they went to school, I guess, near their home. His apparently at one time they were going to be evicted. So I mean, it's not like this guy wasn't giving signs that there was a problem, Bill.
That's exactly right. And it's sometimes you hear these stories after a serial killer is arrested. Somebody will say, a neighbor will say, he was such a nice guy. I would never have
That's
expected Joe. Now, it is certainly true that we have had people who have an ability to act normal until they're out at night scouring the place for young women.
right.
And we've had that too. But you do have so many of these situations that we read about in what I assume is an accurate news story, where someone has been the cause of a lot of trouble, and instead of dealing with it in a professional manner, they're given a date to appear in court 2 years from now, and in the interim, things happen. Maybe.
No, they usually do, which is why we read about it later. Now, President Trump has now issued or reactivated or activated some statute that basically says that he has the authority to. I don't know if he does, but I'm saying the United States has the authority to check everybody who's coming and their current status. And this is,
Yes.
of course, driving some people crazy because they think that somebody's rights are being violated, which is another, too many rights are being violated in our society, Bill. I guess
Yes.
that's the idea.
Yes, well, they basically are. Some of them aren't even denying that many of the people who should be in prison are out on the street. Remember, you need them. You need them to mow your lawns.
Right.
You need them to install your faucets. And don't be so quick to want to arrest them. What would you
Right.
do without them? And so there are some people, even in politics, who are blatant enough to say that.
Well, and it's just so crazy because, of course, there's the casualties here, the young woman and the young man who apparently is not doing that well either. He's
No,
they're keeping him
sad.
alive, I guess, but it's very sad. But that's two very young people who one was killed and the other one probably will never be the same for life after this. I mean, the injuries are
Yes.
probably going to be pretty bad, and all of this done by somebody who should have been in the radar and should have been. And by the way, if I may say something else too, this is another problem with these sanctuary cities in blue states, and that's where this guy was living,
Oh,
in the
yes,
state of Washington.
absolutely. Yep.
Because for some reason, if the local police had been advised that, hey, we got this guy over here, his papers have expired, the local police would at least taken some interest in this guy and maybe done something about it.
Mm,
Um, but here, the local police probably doesn't even know that the guy doesn't have papers because that you can't do that. I guess you can't check that.
that's
And
right.
so,
If you go out and check that, you're violating his rights of
right.
privacy.
Exactly. So, I mean, at some point, it seems to me that common sense is just lost.
Common
That
sense has been
there's almost like
losing in this society. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Do you have? Are we on?
no,
Are
I
we
think I
on?
just lost you there for a couple of seconds when you
Oh,
said
okay. All
problem
right.
with the line, and I lost. You said the common sense. I said
Common
that there was a
sense.
lack of common sense, and then you
Yes.
said something, and then I lost you.
Common sense has been declining in this society for many years, and it isn't. Common sense is not even seen as anything good, because then
Right.
the left wing instructor gets up and says, "Well, what do you mean by common sense?
That's
Who
right.
you have in common about this? How do you
Right.
know that that person isn't a racist?" And
Right.
so even a term like common sense, which basically means the sense of the society, the general sense of the society as to what's good for them, has been twisted completely out of shape.
Yeah. I mean, it is unbelievable. And then you have, of course, the consequences
Oh
of
yes,
a young woman who's dead and the other young man who's injured pretty bad. And then everybody's saying, how did this happen? Well, I mean, I can tell you, I mean, I'm not an expert on immigration laws, but I can tell you that if there had been the least amount of supervision of his case, they would have found out that his case had expired. And I really feel quite strongly, Bill, that if you're in this country and your papers expire, that it's on you to run down to the immigration department and say, look, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to stay another 6 months. Can I get an
yes,
extension? Okay.
yes,
All
and
right.
that's exactly what would happen.
Yeah, they'll get an extension. I'm pretty most of them will, especially if they have some kind of local support. But I mean, the idea that you let it lapse and then 6 months later, when it comes up, then it's somehow the fault of the system, not yours. I'm sorry. I mean, at
Yes,
some point, people have got to be more responsible. It's on you. If you lose if I cannot pay my home, they take it away.
that's right. As you said, it's on the individual who is the aggressor or the criminal or the past aggressor, but they don't think that way. They think these people are victims of society
That's
and that
it.
we're chasing after them as a means of getting back at them and a means of showing that the police are doing their job.
It is absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. Now, President Trump, has now said he's activating this statute that I mentioned before, and it's a statute that basically grants the federal government the power. And to me, that makes a lot of sense, Bill. We need to know who's in the country. That is not such a horrible thing. We need to know who's in, and let's check who's in. Let's check what they're doing, and if they don't have papers, why don't they have papers? Uh, but I know a lot of people, Bill, who've been living in the United States for 10, 15, 20 years who don't have papers.
Yes.
And then you ask yourself the question, okay, but what were you doing for the last 20 years?
Well, that's it. Maybe he has an honorable job. Maybe he's a gardener or something. But the fact of the matter is, if he's going to raise a family here, at any time, he can be deported, and he's counting on the inefficiency and corruption of the United States government to make sure he's not deported.
Right. It is absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. I don't know any other way of putting it. And there needs to be a crackdown. And that's going to make a few people uncomfortable.
Oh, very.
But if you're here and you don't have papers, or you're here and your papers have expired, I'm sorry, but we have a right to know who you are. And this, I mean, I'm sorry, I don't mean to repeat myself, but there are people whose papers have expired 2 or 3 years ago. And it didn't occur to them to go down to the immigration office and say, "Hey, can I get an extension? I'm going to have to stay a little bit longer here."
Yeah.
You
Yes.
know, you know what I mean? It's just remarkable to me how sloppy we've become doing this. Well, let me go to the other story. These boats that were blowing up in the Caribbean, I guess, were blowing up these in international waters. There was an incident recently where blew up the boat, and I guess it didn't finish the job, so they went back for a second shot. and they killed a couple of people. I don't know why they're so concerned about the two who survived. We basically killed a bunch of others. But anyway, they're saying it's a war crime, Bill, that the Secretary of Defense committed a war crime. Come on, you got to be kidding me!
Yeah,
But that's what they're
yes.
saying.
Well, yes, and they're saying it without any real evidence before any hearings have been held. Whereas if somebody is caught on the street with a gun and there's a guy lying next to him, well, we have no evidence really. We have
That's
to
right.
verify that the person was alive in the first place. How do we
Right.
know?
No,
It's
it
just
is amazing.
it's politicizing everything. Everything comes down. Remember, they used to say the personal is political. It's a derivation of that. That
Right.
everything that occurs is really a political act, nothing else.
Right. And it's always in one direction toward Trump.
Yeah. Oh yes.
And that's the thing. Now, Jonathan Turley, you know who he is, the
Oh yeah.
professor
Sure.
and legal contributor, I guess they call him. He was saying that in these particular cases, you don't have time to think about all these things. You're making literally a second to second decision. So you fire the first missile and you blow up the boat, and it hasn't quite been blown up yet. So you immediately have orders. I mean, your orders are to destroy the boat. And if in the second shot there were a couple of survivors and you kill them, well, that's war. That's the way it is. Now,
Yeah.
if you intentionally, I mean, if you were thinking about it and say, okay, let's go back and kill those two guys, maybe that's a different story.
Yes. Well, that's the issue. That's the issue. That the point was made that traditionally we will try to save people who are enemies and are drowning in the water, and we did that regularly during World War II, and they become then prisoners of war.
Yeah, and I guess, again, I'm not familiar with all the facts of this thing because these things are so fast. If you look at the video,
Oh
uh,
yes.
I mean, it's usually a boat maybe no more than 10 or 15 feet long. And most of the time when I've seen the video, the first time they blow it up. So I don't know what happened this time, whether the missile didn't hit the correctly or whatever.
Well, there were some survivors. The ship, they did blow up the boat, but some people did survive the explosion.
And
And
could they see
the,
them? Could they see them? I
I
mean,
don't
I don't
that I
know.
don't know. That I don't know. I uh, I I guess the Democrats will push for a court martial or for indictment of the Secretary of Defense or something, but they'll keep the story alive as long as they can.
Well, the media likes it too because I happened to see today a little bit of the press secretary's press conference, and that was half of the questions
Well,
uh,
yes.
about
And
this.
well, look, it's a legitimate question.
It is.
If one of our people acted improperly, based on the discussion we just had about other situations, then that individual has to be punished, and I have no problem with that. But they've got him guilty before any facts are known, and that I don't like.
Well, the other thing too, Bill, and again, just looking at it from a distance, these missiles they're not flying. It's not like they're flying an F-15 over the boat. They're usually fired from a distance. These missiles, I think they're drones. I think they're usually fired from one of those ships out there. So
Yeah.
how do you know? I mean, I don't mean you, Bill, but in just thinking out loud, how would the person firing the missile know that there were survivors? I mean,
Well,
the video may reflect that, but
well,
that's
that's
after
it.
the
That's
fact.
that's something you have to find out in an inquiry, and people would be put under oath and saying, "Were you aware that there were any survivors?" And I suspect most people would say no, because they
Right.
hit the thing and then get away as fast as they can. Uh, so I don't know how you prosecute a case like that, but if they're willing to go the distance, it'll be a hard prosecution. But if there is a law enforcement officer who believes that it's a wise prosecution, let him state his case.
Right. And I believe the Secretary of Defense said that the orders that the commander the orders given to the commander is you have to destroy it.
Yes.
So I guess that's where it all got. that's the way it goes, I guess, in those situations. But what bothers me is the what you said a minute ago, Bill, where everything is now political. Everything has got to be reduced to how do we get Trump, and it's
Yes,
just it's
exactly.
making our country. I don't
Well,
know, not
Trump
very.
derangement syndrome has now become a legitimate disease.
Well, for sure. Speaking of Trump derangement syndrome, let's go to another story, and that's the video about the illegal orders. Well,
Yes.
I've seen a bunch of these people on TV, Senator Kelly most notably, and it seems like the more they talk, the deeper they get.
Well, they were very ill advised to do what they
Yes,
did. I mean, we know anyone who's ever been in the service knows you are not permitted to follow an illegal order, and that is known. But you've got to tell somebody what an illegal order is.
right.
Whenever they were given the chance to say, "Well, has the president given any illegal orders?" Well, I really don't know. I mean, I
Right.
think that
I'm not familiar with any, but
yes,
nevertheless, I am warning the soldiers not to obey them.
yes,
Seems to be
because they might be illegal.
right.
Now they
And
might be legal, but you want to
right.
be sure.
Well, and you never know. Any day he could wake up and tell the army to go out and shoot people.
Yes.
And
Well, that's these especially the ones who were in the service and achieved some rank should have known better. That I have no problem at all giving them the standard talk when they enter the service that you are not permitted to follow an illegal order. Well, how do I know if it's illegal, sir? Well, you will be told if it's illegal. An officer higher than you are, possibly with legal training, possibly a member of the judge advocates department, will tell you if something is illegal in the opinion of that department, and you will not be permitted to follow that order.
right. And one example that comes to mind, you probably remember this better than me, but remember My Lai in Vietnam, or
Yes,
Millet or
y-
Milai or whatever that was? That
yes,
was a case where the soldier or the sergeant or whatever was prosecuted. But as I understand that story, Bill, they went into a town or village, and they thought that the young people there, or the kids, or the women there, were operating for the Viet Cong, and they just took them out, if I recall,
y-
and burned the whole town or something.
yes. I think they did. I
Yeah,
don't recall the exact. Lieutenant Kelly was the name of
Kelly,
the
right, right,
officer,
yes, and he was
and
found guilty of something, I
something.
think.
Yes. Well, the behavior of the American soldiers in that situation was not permitted. I mean,
Right,
they were engaged in illegal acts. That's why we have a court-martial system. That's why we have police. I mean,
right,
that every unit of the United States military has some type of law enforcement under its jurisdiction because not everybody's a nice guy.
right.
But to say to somebody in advance, you may not follow an illegal order. But what's an illegal order, sir? Well, I mean, I'm not really sure, but you be sure, you be sure. I think they were
Well,
very
but
ill
it also.
advised to do it.
Oh, I agree. I agree. One thing that I would say also, Bill, is like you were saying, how does the common soldier know? Or not even a common soldier, but I'm thinking of the example, specific example, when the Enola Gay was flying to Hiroshima. As I understand, the only person in the plane who knew what that bomb could do was the pilot or the captain. And there may have been another person in the plane, the engineer who was preparing the bomb. But
Yes,
most of the guys in that flight didn't know that. Most of
that's
the guys in that flight were just like, okay, we're going to drop a big bomb today, but I don't think they knew.
we've been dropping bombs for 4 years.
And
And
in the
how is
case
that?
of Tokyo, and in the case of Tokyo, as I understand, they were pretty mean and rough in Tokyo
Oh,
and
they were.
several.
Yes. Well, Curtis LeMay, after a very major raid on Tokyo, and the raid was against small homes that were being used as factories to build parts for the Japanese Air Force. And his feeling was, and it was widespread that these places may look like houses, but they're really a defense industry made up of a lot of people who live there and were supplying the parts to the Japanese airport or Air Force. And most people felt they are engaged in acts of war and are hurting or killing our soldiers. And I recall that after that enormous raid that knocked these houses out occurred, Curtis LeMay, who was the bomber commander, said, "If we win the war, I'm a war hero. If we lose the war, I'm a war criminal."
Right.
And what he
Yeah.
meant was it's in the eye of the beholder.
Well, and remember the bombing of what was that German city that was just devastated during
Dresden, I
World
think. Wasn't it?
Right? Yeah,
Was it
yeah,
Dresden?
Dresdner. Yeah, that was completely devastating. I mean, well, we were literally killing civilians. Whether we did it on purpose or not, I don't know, but a lot of civilians got killed. And
Yes,
I just feel that we I don't know, we have to we cannot we cannot politicize everything like you said before, Bill. And I think this video was a very bad case of politics. I really do. And I'll maybe repeat myself. I may have told you this the last time we brought this up, but I think what you had here were four members of Congress who were vaccinating themselves against the primary, who were basically saying, "Hey, I got a primary probably coming up, and from the left, and I don't. I want to make sure the left knows that I hate Trump as much as they do."
yes, yeah, yeah.
I'm going to guess. I don't know the answer, but I'm going to guess that that was in the minds of many of these members of Congress because
Absolutely.
they represent safe seats,
Yes.
so they're not worried about losing to a Republican.
No, well, they're worried about losing to one of the extreme Democrats whose
Exactly.
campaign would be very well financed by George Soros and some of the other characters who were out there.
And the camp.
And yes,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, they are afraid of the far left. The far left is not high in number, but it is very high in intensity. And we have seen what small numbers of people involved in a conspiracy can do.
Well, Bill, for fear of repeating myself, I may have said this the last time. I'm just going to mention the name Henry Cuellar
Yes, right. Okay.
because Henry Cuellar in South Texas was nearly defeated by a total unknown in that district who showed up just in time to register with lots of
Hmm.
money and lots of attacks on Henry Cuellar. And he almost, that was a lady, it was a young woman. She almost pulled it off. So you had probably one of the longest serving Democrats
Oh,
representing
yes.
Laredo, Texas, was nearly
Yes.
defeated by a young woman. Nobody knew who she was 90 days before the election,
And
Bill.
that's happened. That's not the only time it's happened. I mean, many people go to the polls, especially for lower offices like school boards, and they will simply pull down the lever of the party they believe in, not knowing what the candidate is like, and not knowing if they really agree with that candidate. People do not inform themselves well enough to vote in an election.
Especially primaries. Let me bring up New York City here. I want to ask you about Ukraine, but I want to also, what is your weekly report on New York City apprehension? You mentioned to me before the show. This gentleman Mandani is making some interesting appointments, isn't he?
Well, he's making appointments that are disturbing to a lot of New Yorkers because many
Yes.
of the people on that appointment list, and yes, it is true, it's only for the campaign, but many of them are extreme leftists. I mean, these are not liberals by any
No.
stretch of the imagination. These are the people who really believe that, that Joe Stalin was a truly great man and was simply misunderstood.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. If they had only given Fidel Castro more time,
That's right.
he would have made Cuba a socialist paradise. Yes, I know.
And everybody would have had a car.
Right. That's right. Everybody would have had a car and a standard of living second to none.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. That's what they believe. But I think the challenge for Mandani, Bill, is he's going to have to give a speech, I guess, inauguration speech, and then he's going to have to run the city. And I guess as long as he keeps the police chief or commissioner happy, he might make it. But if she ever gets unhappy and decides to move on, I don't know how he puts it all back together, Bill.
Well, I don't know either how he puts it back together again, but look. This guy can last 2 weeks. I mean, he is so out of it that he might do something so bad that the governor, who has jurisdiction over the mayor of New York, can say you're out. And now she will then be purged from the Democratic Party and probably sent to some place in leftist Siberia, like Greenwich Village or
Right.
something.
Right. Yeah. And she's already in some electoral trouble herself,
Yes, she
from what
is.
I've seen in some of the polling data. So it's going to be fun. I think 2026 is going to be a fun year for New York, and I don't mean the Yankees.
No.
I
Well,
think,
look, it could also be a very bad year if
yeah.
the guy
Well,
goes crazy. I mean, he might go crazy.
that's what I fear. Well, another place too that is very controversial, Bill, is Ukraine, where I guess they're trying to work out a deal. Secretary Rubio was, I guess, negotiating with somebody there. I just don't know what it will take to fix this problem because I don't see the Russians pulling back. Ukraine apparently is running out of soldiers, from what I heard, and I don't know. I mean, short
It-
of a NATO intervention to
that's
stop
right.
Russia, I don't
That's
know what
right.
else happens.
I think that the Russians are going to simply stall, 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 hoping that the United States will be forced to send troops into Ukraine, which will wreck whatever administration is in place. Or he could say, "Look, if I give up in Ukraine after all the casualties we've taken, I'll be assassinated. I don't
Mhm.
need that. Let's just fight on and see what happens, and I'll have a very good security detail."
Well, I understand they don't see Putin too much in public in Moscow these days.
No,
I mean, he doesn't go to a lot of football games or whatever he goes to. I mean, he keeps a very private, secluded life. Um, but seriously, it maybe the only thing that could fix that would be the elimination of Putin.
I'm afraid that's correct. And I think a lot of people wonder why it hasn't already happened. I mean, he
Yeah,
either has terrific security or people are so afraid of him that they're afraid to act or even participate. But he's one dangerous man because he has his hands on nuclear weapons.
right. And I read the other day, Bill, that they're having to basically bring in older and older soldiers now.
Yes.
And in fact, they brought in North Korea, which didn't go real well for the North Korean soldiers because
No, not at all. They were cut
they
to
weren't
pieces.
ready for it. Yeah, they were
Terrible.
blown up to pieces because they didn't know what they were doing. Unfortunately, for them. But he's having to. I mean, they're just basically going deeper and deeper to look for men to fight this war. There's a lot of young men who are, I guess, evading the service or whatever, not the draft, but the service.
Yeah.
And he's not exactly in a very strong position either. But neither is Ukraine. I understand Ukraine is also having a hard time,
Very.
recruiting
Yes.
soldiers. I mean, it's like,
They're running out of men, which is what
yes,
happens even in large countries. So I have no predictions to make about what's going to happen. I think the most likely thing is the war will go on a lower level, and Trump will lose interest in it, and they'll negotiate for years.
right. And we know one thing: the Europeans are never going to put the troops. So I mean that. Well, maybe NATO if you do it in the name of NATO, but then I'm not even sure they'll put up troops if we do that, Bill. They'll
Well,
find
it's
some excuse.
nobody actually wants to do anything that involves them. It's
Right.
always they always want a plan that involves everybody else.
Right. They want the United States to fix it, but then
That's right.
when they have to send their own troops to fix it, well, we don't have we can't do that because whatever reason
It's against
they
public opinion.
it's that's right.
Yes,
It's
right.
yeah, yeah. It's against public opinion in France to send troops. Well, what do you think it is in the United States? I mean,
You're
you
right.
think
That's the,
yeah. Well, Bill, one last story for the week, and this borders. This is comical, but at the same time sad, and that's the governor of Minnesota and this scandal that has blown up. Uh, it's just crazy. I
Minnesota seems to have a lot of scandals. Have you noticed that in recent
Yes,
years?
yes.
Every
But it
time you
wasn't
turn,
that way before, Bill. It was always this beautiful little state up there, the land of 10,000 lakes,
yes, that's
where
right.
people used to go for fishing and winter vacation, and the Mayo Clinic was up there. So it was this beautiful state, Minneapolis, beautiful city. Mary Tyler Moore, where her show was in Minneapolis, St. Paul. I mean, what a beautiful area. I've been there a few times, and this is maybe 20, 25 years ago I was there, but it was a beautiful place, particularly in the spring. It's absolutely
Oh
beautiful.
yes, yes.
And
Spring
now
in
it's like,
Minnesota is beautiful.
and then now between these people from this country and these people from that other country, it's like I'm not even sure if English is the official language of Minnesota anymore, Bill.
Oh, I think it would be shocking if it were. I'd be embarrassed to be an American if they made English the real language of Minnesota.
But somebody was asking, why are there so many people from Somalia in Minnesota? I didn't know there was a historical connection there between
Uh,
Somalia and Minnesota. I mean, you can understand
they
Florida, but you can understand Florida and Cuba because there was
yes.
a little historical connection there.
No, but
You know,
this is very strange
yes,
because they all seem to have followed the congresswoman from Minneapolis to Minnesota, and I
yes,
think that they're going to find that she's going to be gone soon with a lot of money.
yes, and that's what the scandal is. I guess people
Yes.
were stealing money, and Governor Walz is in the middle of it. And he was on the Meet the Press program yesterday, and I don't think he helped himself a great deal by
No.
that appearance. So it's like now I got a note from my good friend Barry Castleman. He just posted an article saying that Walz is going to be getting a lot of opposition from within the Democrat Party. He may have a very rough primary. Uh,
Oh, yes. Well, he's basically a crook, and he was selected by the very powerful and wise Kamala Harris, who could
yes,
have had a much better governor, but she was apparently told to do this, and she's now in a state of perpetual embarrassment. That is her political position, and yes, he's going to a primary in Minnesota.
yeah,
Who runs against whom in that state?
right,
They'll have a wrestler. They'll have a wrestler who runs, and he feels I can take it. I can take this
right.
job, and he'll be opposed by somebody who runs a rose garden.
Or
You know,
something like that. But I remember, Bill, there was a time not long ago when Minnesota used to produce people like Hubert Humphrey, Walter Mondale.
yeah,
Okay, I mean, maybe I didn't vote for those guys, but they were
but
decent
they were
people.
talented people.
Yeah, I mean, Hubert Humphrey. I mean, he was 68 when he ran for president. I remember him. And he seemed like a nice man. He had a wife by the name of Muriel,
Muriel, yeah, Muriel.
who was a very nice lady. And Walter Mondale seemed like a nice fellow, nice guy, had a nice wife. I don't know. I mean, what's happened to those people up there now? They've gone nuts. When you have for governor a guy like Waltz, you have to really ask yourself, what lake are they going to up in Minnesota?
Yes, they all drink the same lake water, which is guaranteed to be the very finest lake water in the world.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah, somebody's been putting something in those 10,000 lakes because they're selecting some people up there who are just absolutely crazy. Not just Waltz, but the attorney general.
Oh, the attorney general is a whack job.
Yes.
He's an old whack job from the old. I'm trying to think of, is it Ellison? Is that the
Yes,
guy's name?
Ellison. Yeah,
Yes,
Ellison.
he's a
Yeah.
real He's an old fan of who was that extreme leader, Louis Farrakhan, I believe. He's in
Yes.
that he's on that end of the spectrum.
And then when you look at the map of Minnesota, Bill, if you just look at the map from the 2024 election, it's all red except Minneapolis.
Yeah, yes,
And you
yes,
go, wow, I mean, how does that happen?
that does happen
You
when you
know,
have
I guess all,
that happens in New
I
York when
guess,
you have a big city.
yeah.
They
Well,
can
that's it. That's it.
they
But
turn
one
out to
interesting thing about that is, but one interesting thing about that election in 24, Bill, is that despite having the governor of the state on her ticket, she only won by like 6 points, which is a real
yes,
shocker.
yes.
That was not what they were expecting out of Minnesota. So, but anyway, Bill, you wrote something. I thought we'd take a couple of minutes here. You wrote something at Urgent Agenda. I thought it was interesting about Iran. If maybe you could just give us a quick summary of it. I thought it was very interesting about the threat of nuclear weapons, and if you could just kind of give us a little summary of it.
Well, what I was saying in that is that people are forgetting the negotiations with Iran. We have to make an assumption that Iran is still building nuclear weapons. We know they are building intercontinental missiles, and there does not seem to be a great concern about it. And people say, well, it really doesn't matter. They're a small country. A small country can they can reach the point where they can put two nuclear bombs into American cities and, in effect, not wreck the United States, but wreck the idea of the United States and American invincibility. And they
Right.
might do it. The point I was making was these are religious fanatics, and they don't think the way other people think.
That's right, and that's exactly the point. And I thank you so much for having written that because I thought it was very timely. Nobody seems to be talking about that issue right now. Everybody's
They're not that interested. Even when we bombed the Iranian nuclear program,
that's right,
I would go into shops here where we live and restaurants. Nobody was talking about it.
right.
They
No, I
didn't
agree.
even care.
I agree. No, I understand exactly what you mean. Well, Bill, make sure you're well protected against the storm, whatever it is coming into. I saw the headline saying this is going to be the biggest storm ever in the Northeast. So I hope that you survive the biggest storm ever, Bill.
Yes, the big the big they're getting worse and worse with these descriptions. This is going to be the biggest fire in a candy store in the entire history of the world. There
Right,
never will be another candy bar.
right. Well, it's going to be historic, they say.
Yes, historic.
Your storm is going to be historic. Anyway, I hope it doesn't block your streets or turn off your electricity. That's the only bad thing about these storms. They can get
Yep,
pretty
yep,
nasty. Yeah. But you have a
definitely.
great week, Bill, and and eat a lot of turkey sandwiches. Everybody seems to be doing that, and we'll talk to you the next time. And as always, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure, and we'll talk next week.
We'll do it next week. Thank you so much. Our good friend Bill Katz, the editor of Urgent Agenda, went through a few issues here today. This thing with Ukraine is very confusing to me, I have to admit, because I would like to see Ukraine succeed, but I don't know how they're going to unless there is an intervention of NATO. We've given them a lot of money. They have fought bravely. I cannot take that away from them. They fought bravely. But my goodness, Russia seems to be hanging on, and they're bigger, and they got a lot more men and tanks. So, and that's usually helpful to win these things. But thank you so much for listening. Everybody have a great week and eat your turkey sandwiches. That's what everybody does, I guess, this week after Thanksgiving. And we will talk to you later. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas.